Yellowstone National Park is home to hundreds of geysers, hot springs, and other geothermal features. One of the most famous is the aptly named Grand Prismatic Spring. It earned its name because it's huge and full of rainbow colors. But another reason is that it's a massive hot tub that would make any Roman emperor blush. Sure, you can find hotter pools in Iceland or hot springs all over the American West, but few can match this one for sheer size. The Grand Prismatic Spring is nearly perfectly circular, about 370 feet across and a staggering 204 feet deep. That's deeper than a 20-story building. The spring is also one of many signs that something big is happening beneath Yellowstone. Beneath the park's seemingly pretty landscapes lies one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth. While the ground may seem solid beneath your feet, it can suddenly turn to soup if the volcano erupts. And while no one is expecting an eruption anytime soon, it does make you wonder what signs might tip us off that an imminent eruption is coming. Yellowstone National Park was established in 1872, making it the world's first national park. But humans have known about the area's geothermal features since long before that. In fact, Native Americans used them for their medicinal qualities centuries before European settlers arrived. However, we're still learning about the extent of the Yellowstone Supervolcano, and some scientists think its history stretches back much farther than we previously thought. To understand how we got here, we need to go back in time quite a bit. First, let's start with what we mean by supervolcano. You probably think of Mount Vesuvius when you hear that term, since it destroyed the city of Pompeii in 79 AD. But volcanoes are ranked by their explosive potential, not just their tendency to destroy cities. So Mount St. Helens in Washington state is actually a bigger volcano than Vesuvius, but we still call Vesuvius the more dangerous one because of what happened to Pompeii. A supervolcano, on the other hand, is any volcano that has had an eruption magnitude of 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VE. An eruption at this level releases more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of volcanic material, which is why they tend to leave behind huge craters called calderas. Scientists believe that the Yellowstone supervolcano began forming sometime between 17 and 20 million years ago when a hotspot, a magma source located deep in the Earth's mantle, began creating a chain of volcanoes along the eastern edge of what is now the Rocky Mountains. This chain of volcanoes traveled north as the North American plate moved over the hotspot, much like the chain of islands created by the Hawaiian hotspot today. Eventually, the hotspot migrated into what is now Yellowstone, forming what we know as the Yellowstone Supervolcano. Yellowstone has had 3 major eruptions during its lifetime, which makes it a so-called composite volcano, meaning it's made up of layers of both lava and ash. The oldest layer dates back 2.1 million years, but the 2 youngest are fairly close together. They occurred about 1.3 million years ago and 640,000 years ago. Now, those are big numbers, but that means that the average interval between large eruptions is somewhere around 600,000 years. The last smaller eruption happened about 14,000 years ago. But wait, we live in the age of humans, a species that supposedly evolved less than 300,000 years ago. How could anyone live so close to such a dangerous volcano? Well, our ancestors were nowhere near this area when these major eruptions happened. The first hominins didn't reach the Americas until around 1.5 million years ago, but eventually, they did arrive. Homo sapiens followed around 12,000 years later. But even though people have lived near Yellowstone for thousands of years, there's no evidence that any of them stayed put long enough to learn its lessons. The town of Gardner, Montana, for example, was founded in 1888. And in the early 1900s, the United States government recognized the area's geothermal features as a potential energy source. After all, they were already heating the surrounding land. So why not put that heat to use? Geothermal power plants were built in the area in the late 1940s. And today, the Norris Geyser Basin provides enough steam to power about 750 homes. However, the energy created from the Earth's heat isn't without risk. Geothermal features are just one of several warning signs that an eruption is on the horizon. As molten rock, known as magma, pushes up toward the surface, the pressure can cause the ground above it to bulge. Scientists monitoring the Yellowstone Supervolcano have noticed that the ground between Yellowstone Lake and the northeast entrance to the park has risen by as much as 2 inches per year since 2012. If you thought that sounded like a lot, consider that it's only a tiny part of a much larger change. Between 1985 and 2015, the caldera itself rose by about 25 feet. Fortunately, according to researchers, the uplift is happening so slowly that it's probably nothing to worry about yet. But if the rate increases, it could be a sign of an impending eruption. In general, seismic activity is another indication that magma is moving underneath the surface. That's why the Yellowstone Supervolcano is constantly monitored by a network of seismographs. In the surrounding area, swarms of earthquakes often occur when magma intrudes into a new area. While earthquakes happen all over the world every day, scientists can often tell the difference between regular tectonic quakes and those caused by volcanic activity. And although increased earthquake activity isn't always a warning sign of an imminent eruption, it certainly gets their attention. The last time a swarm of earthquakes hit Yellowstone, a magma chamber was created beneath the western part of the caldera. But there are plenty of warning signs that don't involve shaking. Geysers and hot springs are hydrothermal features that result from water seeping into the heated rocks beneath the surface. And they're a big part of Yellowstone's appeal. Tourists visit the park specifically to see features like Old Faithful, which erupts roughly every 90 minutes. But if these features begin to behave erratically, it could be a sign of an upcoming eruption. Steam and gas emissions also increase as magma moves closer to the surface, which can lead to more frequent or violent geyser eruptions. In addition, the temperature of a hot spring can rise significantly before an eruption, especially if it was previously cold or even snow-covered. Now, you can probably guess where this is going. Just like the rest of us, the ground can belch out poisonous gases. Some of the most obvious include sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. When magma rises beneath the surface, these gases can escape through vents in the ground. Most of the time, you won't notice them unless you're right on top of them. But increased gas emissions could be a sign that something bigger is about to happen. There's even a gas-only detection system in place that samples air in areas with no visible hydrothermal features. While no one expects CO2 levels to ever get high enough to cause a significant release of lethal gases, it's possible that a buildup of gases could overwhelm the system, posing a risk to park visitors. All of these signs are monitored closely by the United States Geological Survey, or USGS, which issues regular updates about the volcano's health. If you want to keep tabs on the supervolcano yourself, they even have a handy little map that lets you know how each feature is doing. Luckily, there's no immediate danger. However, researchers do expect the magma chamber beneath the eastern part of the caldera to erupt in the next 600 years. But that's just a prediction based on past behavior. And you never know when a volcano will decide to break the rules. You should definitely take warnings about volcanoes seriously. Remember Pompeii, but you don't have to throw away all your stuff and move away from cities near active volcanoes. Instead, watch this video about how people in dangerous areas prepare for the worst. To learn more about that, click the link in the description. If you enjoyed this quick dive into the Yellowstone Supervolcano, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more journeys to amazing places. Thanks for watching.